this lesson, we're going to be talking about chords. Thus far, we've only played a power chord, and we've talked a little bit about chords. And we should know by now that a chord is made of 3 or more notes played at the same time. Power chord we know is just 2 notes, so technically it's not a chord, it's an interval. But a chord is 3 or more notes played at the same time. So today we're going to talk about 2 different chords. We're going to talk about 2 different types of chords. The first one being a major chord, okay? Now chords are built off of the intervals of our major scale. So a major chord, also referred to as a major triad because it's 3 notes, tri meaning 3, is built off of 3 intervals of the major scale, that being the root of the scale you're in, or the tonic, the tonal center, the 3rd interval, and the 5th interval. So you basically, if you take a power chord, which is 1 out of 5, and you add a 3, now you have a major chord or a major triad. So let's take a look at finding the notes for a G major chord. So if we take our G major scale, okay, we know that our formula for a major chord is the root, the 3rd, and the 5th. So we take our G major scale. We have our root note G. We have our 3rd note, 1, 2, 3, that's B. And our 5th interval, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, D. So now we know what notes make up a G major chord. So it's G, the root, B, the 3rd, and D, the 5th. Okay, now, so we found those notes within our major scale. Now we need to find them in a place on the guitar where we can play those notes at the same time. So the first chords we're going to learn are open chords, meaning chords that use open strings. So the G major open chord is like this. Second finger on the 3rd fret, low E string, that's our G, that's our root note. First finger on the 2nd fret, A string, that's our B, that's our 3rd. Then we're going to play open D, the open D string, that's our 5th. We're going to play our open G string, so we're going to repeat the root note. Open B string, so we're going to repeat the 3rd, and then our 3rd finger is going to go right here on the 3rd fret on the high E string, and that's going to repeat the root note again. So you play every string. So you might have wondered, like, well, if the note is only made of 3 notes, why are we hitting 6 strings? So we're just doubling up some of the intervals to make it thicker and fuller sounding. Okay, so 2nd fret, or 3rd fret, 2nd finger, low E string, 2nd fret, A string with our 1st finger, and 3rd fret, high E string with our 3rd finger. And make sure your fingers are nice and arched. You're on the tips of your fingers. You can kind of play around with your thumb. Sometimes I'll slide my thumb up like this. It just makes it a little easier. You just got to watch that your palm down here is not, blocking these higher strings. You can have your thumb on the back of the neck. Kind of experiment with what's comfortable with where your thumb is on the neck. So that's our G major chord. So strumming chords is a little bit different than when we were playing single notes and we had our palm rested on the bridge. When you strum chords, you're going to want to loosen your hand up. You're not really going to want to rest that on the bridge so tight. And strumming comes kind of more from the wrist and a little bit your elbow right here. You're going to pivot back and forth. So just kind of, loosely like that. Just play down the strings. You want to check every once in a while. Like that. Play each note individually to make sure all the notes of the chord are sounding out. So to play the chord as a whole, it's just kind of one swift motion down with your pick. So just kind of practice playing quarter notes on that chord. So, you know, just at whatever pace, a nice slow pace. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for now we're just doing downstrokes with our strumming. In later lessons we'll get into different strum patterns, but right now I just want to get you used to playing the chords. Okay, so that's our G major chord. Next chord we're going to talk about is a minor chord. So the chord formula for a minor chord is, again, based off the major scale. We're going to do an E minor chord. So we take our E major scale, and we know that the formula for an E minor chord is the root note, the flat third, and the fifth. So the only difference between a major and a minor chord is the third in a minor chord is taken back a half step, or we call that flatting it. So if we take our E major scale, let's go up here to the 12th fret, that's E, we play our major scale. Okay, so we know the root note is E. The third, we have to find the third, so count up 3, 1, 2, 3. For a minor chord, the third is flatted, so we just take that back one half step. We know that that note is G. So we got our root is E, our flat 3, or minor third, is G. Now we find our fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there's our fifth, and that's B. So an E minor chord is made up of E as the root, G as the flat third or minor third, and B as the fifth interval. So now we got to take those notes, find them up here in first position so we can use our open strings and play our open E minor chord. The way you're going to do that, so we have our root is open E, the low open E string. On the second fret, A string, first finger, we have our B, which is our fifth. That makes our power chord. We've played that before. Then with our second finger on the second fret of the D string, we have our octave, E again. Then we're going to play the open G, that's our minor third. Open B, we're going to repeat our fifth. And then the high E string, repeat our root again. And that's our E minor chord. So again, you want to play those notes individually. That's also referred to as arpeggiating the chord. Just kind of strum that down, get used to that. So let's play some quarter notes on the E minor chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we have two chords, a G major chord and an E minor chord. So now what you have to practice really hard is changing from one chord to the other. So these two chords go together, and they sound good together. So try playing a bar or 2 bars of each just back and forth. So you play your G chord for 2 bars, quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then switch to your E minor chord for 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just practice that as much as you can. And a couple tips. We can see here that your first finger really doesn't have to move, because you need that there anyway for the E minor chord. So that'll help you with a smooth transition. And what you kind of want to do is just practice. You can even practice without strumming, just kind of going back and forth like that. And what you kind of want to do, you don't want to get your fingers way out here. You want to keep them in as close and tight as you can. But as you're moving your fingers, you start to make the shape that your fingers make to make that fingering for that chord. So when I go to the G, as I'm going in the air, I start to make that shape. You can kind of just practice going back and forth. Make sure you stop and check every once in a while to make sure you're getting all the strings. It's a good idea to even just practice arpeggiating back and forth. Okay, so that's our lesson on a G major chord and an E minor chord. So practice that, changing back and forth as much as you can. Chords are kind of tough at first, so don't get frustrated, just keep on practicing.